Okay, so in today's video, I don't know why, but I decided to go ahead and do some landscape studies. So I pulled up a reference from Pinterest. I put it on the top of my artboard as reference to use just to help me and be a little bit of a guiding light while I try and figure this out. I guess I just got a burr up my ass for no reason. I decided I really wanted to just do some genuine practice and learn a little bit, stretch myself. I guess after completing Funguary, I was still in the mood to continue to learn and grow a little bit more rapidly than I have. So if joining me for a video like that sounds like something you would enjoy and you happen to be new around here, I'm Rorifluent. Feel free to call me Rory. Hi, hello, how are you? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I like to create dope art content and hopefully curate a chill atmosphere. And if you're not new around here, what is up, my dudes? Let's get into this video. As you can see, I already have a completed study because I did it while I was hanging out with my partner while he was, and as you've seen my videos before, he was playing a video game, which is no shocker to anybody. I really like to doodle and draw while I'm watching someone do something or listening to a podcast or some sort of YouTube video. Maybe it's even more art content, but I don't know. I really enjoy kind of sitting down, relaxing, and kind of tuning out and doodling and drawing. So I like to do that a lot when I'm hanging out with people, and I happened to decide that I wanted to go ahead and try one of these landscape studies. And then I went, you know what, this would probably make a great video. I'm sure a lot of people would like to see it. And then I posted my latest video, which was just kind of like a hello, hi, reintroducing myself to all of these new subscribers that I've gotten in the last month and a half. And I showed a little bit of what this final study looks like, and I got a comment on that video saying that they would love to, see the landscapes and are very excited about a video like this. So I decided to go ahead, sit down, record it right after I saw that, and do this voiceover so that way I can get that video out here in the next few videos from like where we are currently in my video postings. So at the moment, the last thing to be posted, well, I'm about to post my final Funguary study. So this will be out in a couple videos from that, and yeah, I'm kind of stoked to be talking to you guys about this. It went really well for a study session. I feel really good about my progress and what I was doing, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that. Currently in the video, you can see I started with a base of a really light color and filled like the whole background in, so I understood what kind of my frame of reference was and the sort of space of which I am working to build this little mini landscape painting in. I'm using a cloudy pastel brush from a Max Pack brush from the Retro Gouache collection. It's a cloudy pastel, and I'm just using it very lightly to build from lightest to darkest. It's definitely what I'm the most used to because in watercolor, you also kind of always keep in mind, like, you lay down really light bases of color first and build up to your darks, where with gouache and acrylic and oils, oftentimes you can lay down your dark colors and overlay them with lighter colors and sort of create that layering effect that way. So I am still definitely getting used to that way of painting, and you'll see while I start with a lighter color in the background, I do kind of build to those darks and then layer over top of those darks with lighter colors. So I'm not really doing one or the other. I'm kind of using what I know about watercolors and what little I know about gouache to go at these paintings with a very like sketchy, painterly feel, really trying to figure out how to layer these, what are they called? Like the foreground, background, and middle ground, and trying to figure out how to distinguish those between each other and have like nice balance throughout the piece and make it visually interesting, not just through color, but also through contrast, size contrast, and color contrast, obviously. And yeah, I'm kind of just trying to keep in mind all of these different elements and learn how, if I wanted to draw a landscape that was just about like a grassy field and a path, what would that look like? So that's what I'm doing currently in the video here, is kind of starting to figure out how would I draw grass, and how would I do that from far away and then up close, and how would I distinguish that some of the grass and the hill is farther away from the viewer than the like larger pieces of grass that are closer to the viewer, and kind of playing with size and playing with like sharpness, I guess, and just kind of trying to figure out how to make it look like grass and how to make it look like it's receding into the painting, to make it look like it's a 3D space and the viewer is kind of right at the top of this path looking beyond at these hills. One of the things that I've been battling for a while is figuring out texture and how to have contrast in texture and not make pieces look too muddy, or even just doodles look way too complicated in a way that looks like really chaotic and kind of takes away from the piece or the doodle or whatever it is, and doesn't actually add the sort of like I don't know, like old cozy feel that I'm looking for when I add texture to something. So during these landscape studies, I was really trying to keep that in mind and trying to make them look fuzzy and kind of squishy and inviting, but not lack enough contrast. Like, for example, the background of the piece that I'm working on right here is smooth and doesn't have a lot going on, but then it's a lot more complicated the closer you get to where the viewer is in the frame of reference, and I tried to make that a lot more textured and a lot more interesting to look at, and to make sure there was a lot going on in that part of the painting. But then moving into the middle ground and the background, the details become fainter and everything becomes a little bit smoother, so that hopefully that contrast between texture and no texture actually comes through and makes the piece visually more interesting. Taking what I learned from the two pieces above it, I decided to go ahead and try and go off on my own little world and path and journey and draw a landscape more so like from my head. So I was thinking these like weird oblong oval shaped pillars, maybe like mountain tops or something like that, and then these little bugs kind of crawling all over them, and as the viewer, because they are per the frame of reference, like very close to the bug that is closest to the foreground, because we're standing kind of like looking at one of like from, oh my god, we're like looking at these creatures from the top of another peak that happens to be very close to the bug and the pillar that's on the left side of the painting. I hope that made sense. And so because of that bug and pillar is like the largest and the most, also I decided to make it the darkest so that it looks more like the bug and that pillar are more in shadow than the pillars that are farther away. It was just kind of like a contrast choice, and I also tried to keep the lighting in mind as I create shadows on all of the pillars and all of the bugs and everything that, you know, goes into this little piece here. It definitely starts off pretty rough, and I was a little frustrated, a little skeptical. I was like, I don't know if I learned anything. I don't really know what's happening, when I had sort of like a little bit of a reference to pull from. Now, the two paintings that I did above this one are nothing like the references that I have on the left, and I did try and find the source of these, but as you'll kind of see and notice with Pinterest, if you've ever used it or if you start using it, sometimes things are just kind of like ripped off of the internet with no source. So that is the case here. So I made sure to keep my paintings very different than theirs, so that way there was no need to cite their name or try and figure any of that out. So I was trying really hard to make sure that my little paintings were very different from those three, and this one is just purely straight out of my head, not really any reference at all, just trying to take what I learned and apply it, trying to think about foreground, middle ground, background, contrast in color and in shade and tint, and trying to figure out how to make sure that it's all distinguished from each other and it's not blurring together, and there's very clear, at the very least, foreground and background. And yeah, so for the moment it is definitely a little bit messy, but it does get there in the end, and I actually do end up liking it a lot, which is nice. I don't have to come at the end of this video and be like, well, at least I learned a lot and this painting wasn't great. Like, no, I actually feel pretty good about it. I definitely think that the two where I was more heavily relying on reference turned out better, more, but that's okay. I definitely, at the very least, can tell you guys, hey, I did these 2 landscape studies. I applied what I learned to this 3rd one that is completely out of my head and completely no reference at all. And it wasn't a complete disaster, and that's a total win in my book. I feel like that's pretty sick. You can see that I kind of fell back on two colors that I really love and use quite a lot, which is just like a pale kind of Naples yellow and a sort of like French or green earth kind of color, French green or green earth kind of color, I guess. And I also end up adding sort of like a little bit of a rusty red-brown color and kind of adjusting that. And so this is definitely a color palette that I am very familiar with and quite comfortable with, and I wasn't necessarily trying to push myself with colors on this one. I do think that middle painting is actually a pretty cool like color combination, that like teal with that red. I actually quite like the way that turned out, and it's not necessarily something that I would have gravitated towards or even like felt like could be a part of my color palette, like feel like me, but I really love that middle painting. I think it turned out probably the best of the three, and that was really exciting because it's definitely a lot more from my head than the first one. The first one was heavily relying on the same sort of like color palette reference that I have on the bottom of those three stacked references, and so to go from that to the middle one that definitely was a little bit more from my head was really exciting, especially because it was successful. I definitely take my time with this last painting. It doesn't come quite as quickly or quite as naturally to me because I really am on my own when it comes to this final go at a landscape. And honestly, I just want to, make sure anyone listening to this knows that it's totally fine to be able to use reference and to even rely on reference to an extent. And as long as you're not copying that reference, there is absolutely no issue with ever having a reference. And I don't care how good at art I get, I will probably always at least feel the need to have sort of like a mood board of inspirational things for a piece, or some sort of reference for a pose or an animal or a subject matter within the piece. Like it's completely fine. What I've found that what I like to do with references is just kind of take them and run with them, and so I use them for whatever I need them to help me with, like a pose or an angle, or maybe it's color or contrast or who knows what. Maybe it's a background of some kind, and I take that and I put it in my style and I alter it and change it, and I just use it as a base to start building, almost like I'm carving something out of clay, So I start with whatever it is that I'm using as reference, and then I sort of build off of it and alter it and change it, and 9 times out of 10 it's nearly unrecognizable by the end. And that's how I like to use references, and that's why personally I feel like references are a fantastic thing, because you can take them and you can completely change them, and they just give people and artists a wonderful starting point to create art, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So it makes a lot of sense that this wasn't coming quite as easy to me, because I didn't really have a starting point. My starting point was just, I kind of like these oblong pillars, so we'll go with that. But had I wanted to, I could have maybe looked up some sort of reference regarding like mountaintops and things like that, and that might have helped me have a little bit more of a detailed and more interesting piece. But I'm totally fine with this really simple version of it. It's not like it's a final piece or anything like that, and I was just kind of trying to do something real quick and figure out what I had learned, and I do think that I actually learned quite a lot just through the process of learning and figuring out how to layer colors, layer textures, and get the contrast that I've been looking for to really have it so that when someone looks at this piece, they understand what they're looking at, and they can tell that, whatever's going on in it, they can tell that there's something interesting, and I don't know, like the piece is visually interesting enough to make people want to figure out what's going on in it, and to figure out that things are happening. Like, for example, with the middle piece that I'm really fond of, the path is kind of winding through these hills, and it's like, well, no one's gonna get that if they don't look like hills, and no one's gonna understand that it's grass if it doesn't like have that sort of feel and texture of maybe like dead grass. And so as long as I'm kind of figuring that stuff out and learning how to layer the colors to make something look backlit or frontlit or whatever it is, I am a happy camper, and that's exactly what happened here, and I am really, really excited about it. You can see here with the final edit of the sped up, video footage of my, what do people call it? Like a speed paint footage, whatever, of these quick little doodles and these landscape paintings. You can kind of tell that, I guess all I'm trying to say is you can really focus on the layering that I did and kind of see how I feel like I sculpted and kind of built this slowly and gradually. It was a lot of fun and kind of different than how I normally approach things, but it's honestly how I've been approaching a lot of my Procreate paintings recently, which is why I was really excited and felt capable of studying landscapes and learning them, because I felt like how I paint in Procreate with this sort of layered, more opaque way of painting, and like the brushes and materials that I like to use in Procreate have lended themselves really nice to layering. And so I was like, you know what, landscapes are all about layering and lighting and contrast, so why not try and figure out how to make some landscapes? So I did. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and cut myself off with this rambling, and I'm going to thank you guys for sticking around to the end of this video. I hope you kind of learned a little bit, maybe got some inspiration, maybe I talked you into trying to figure out how to do landscape studies of yourself on Procreate, or maybe you use acrylic or gouache. Personally, I wouldn't try and tackle it with watercolor, because I've been using watercolor for, I don't know, maybe 5 years now, and I still don't necessarily feel like I totally grasp it. I don't know, it's an interesting medium for sure, and I just feel a lot more confident and capable in Procreate. So whatever medium you feel the most confident and capable in, maybe this is your sign to go ahead and do some studies, because these ended up turning out way better than I thought they would, and landscapes are really daunting, and so that was really exciting for me. So, to actually cut off my rambling, thank you so much for staying till the end of the video. If you want to comment, like, subscribe, do the YouTubey things, feel free to. If you don't know what to comment algorithm, because it doesn't matter, it's okay. I just love knowing that there's people out there that are actually watching these videos, and I'll know what you mean if you comment algorithm. So with that, hopefully, I will get to talk to you guys in the next video. Bye!